Thank you for watching Better Business Bureau's 2020 Cybersecurity Program. Our next speaker is Eric Rodriguez. Eric is a 36-year-old veteran in the prevention, detection, and control of fraud. He has worked at American Express, JP Morgan Chase, First Data Resources, and currently at Nelnet Inc. in Lincoln, Nebraska, where he works as the company's financial crimes risk manager. His experience, knowledge, and expertise in the fraud arena include private and government sectors focused on creating unique solutions to mitigate fraud risk worldwide. Eric's certifications include Certified Fraud Examiner, Certified Financial Crimes Analyst, Certified BSA/AML Compliance Officer, Private Specialist, and Certified Control Specialist. In addition, Mr. Rodriguez is currently serving his third term as president of the ACFE Heartland chapter. Eric, the floor is yours.
Well, again, thank you, Jeff. As Jeff said, my name is Eric Rodriguez, and today I'm going to talk to you on a couple of items on COVID-19 business fraud scams. We're going to try to break this down into, into 4 sections here if we have time. The first is going to be the COVID-19 changes, the mode of sales from online and telephone transactions from your face-to-face transactions. The second piece we'll go into and we'll talk in detail as well as vendor fraud, which starts with phishing and BEC. Just like the other presenters talked about, phishing, that's going to be something that's very important. I won't go into the details of it. I'll just go into the types that we've seen. And then I'm going to go into loan scams from Ppp Loans, as well as SBA loan fraud. So currently today, we've seen a big shift, a big migration of the way purchases are made. Typically, most consumers will go out face-to-face for restaurant transactions and a lot of the small business type transactions. But today, that's kind of changed due to the pandemic. So we've seen a lot of small businesses such as restaurants where you can order food and have it picked up or delivered. You can even buy from some of the small local retailers, and they'll have special spots that you can go out there, park, and pick up whatever the purchases that are out there today. Well, basically in the past, when they went to you, you actually swiped that credit card. So that card had what's called a card present, meaning the card was physically at the store. Today, because they're using it online or through telephone, those are coming through as what's called card not present. So as a merchant or as a small business, that opens you up for a liability of chargebacks. Because if someone disputes that transaction and they say they did not make that transaction and the mode was card not present, you're liable for that transaction. So you're going to lose that chargeback, regardless what you sent, what you provide. So we're going to talk about a couple of methods that you can utilize to help you and help protect those charges from being charged back to you. One of the things that we want to look at is using a product that is available with the cards today at most of the merchant locations. It's called AVS. It's Address Verification Service. So if you're making a transaction, if you get the customer's address, the numeric address, meaning the physical address like 115, and then the zip code, that is sent through with the authorization. When that's sent through, that goes in as an ABS. The actual bank comes back to you and gives you an answer saying that, yes, that matches what's on our file with the consumer. So on those cases, you probably want to use these for mail orders. So if you're mailing it to that location, you want to verify that, yes, it is correct. And yes, it belongs to the consumer or the card holder. And that will prevent you from getting any chargebacks of card not present because you did the ABS. Again, this will protect you primarily for those mail order phones. Well, what about the ones where they're going to come up and pick up the product? They're going to go to your store and park and you're going to give them the actual product. You're not mailing it there. In those cases, what I would suggest is when you take a phone order, if you have your employees take phone orders for food or for any sort of merchandise, that not also do they collect the regular information you do as far as the card number, the expiration date, and the name and address, but that they collect that CVV2 code. That's on the back of the credit cards. That CVV2 code will save you from being charged back as card not present. So if someone calls in, makes an order, and you send that to the authorization stream with that CVV2 code, and later there is a dispute, that transaction will be a card present transaction, meaning that you cannot be charged back for card not present. And this is something that you really want to go into because we've been seeing an increase of claims of fraud. And actually two aspects. The first is there are actually fraudsters who are utilizing lost or stolen credit card numbers and making these purchases online, or making purchases at a store to get food and going to pick it up. And you got to remember, in this day and time with the pandemic, it's going to be very difficult to try to prove or to try to identify someone who may have defrauded you, because everyone's going to come pick it up. We're all wearing our mask. We're all covering our faces. So you really don't have any good descriptions there. So you want to make sure that you utilize these two services, the AVS if you're doing mail order, and the CVV2 if you're doing actual orders that are going to be picked up, so you don't get charged for a card not present. So there's really, one of the big things about this too is it's going to save you some money as well, because typically when you actually go out and you make a card transaction and you're keying entering the information, you actually go to a higher base of what they charge you for that authorization, those fees. But if you utilize ABS and you utilize CVV2, that brings you back down to a lower base, so you're saving on interchange fees as well. So not also is it going to protect you from losses, from chargeback, but it's also going to save you money as far as those types of transactions and what the interchange fees are going to be charged to you there. Now, other things that you want to be careful about and why you want to utilize this is because there's a lot of other compliances as well. There's Pci Compliance that's out there, and that's how you store that information and you save that information out there. So if you get someone who calls in and says, this is my credit card number, here's my expiration date, here's my address, all that information is what's considered personal identifiable information, or PII information. So that's the type of information that you want to make sure you as a merchant protect. Because if you don't protect that, and as Dr. Ashley mentioned before with the phishing scams, if they go in and they phish you and they get access to your systems and they're able to steal this information, you're going to be liable for potential breach. A lot of us think, I'm a small business, just like Ashley said, it's a small business. They're not going to pick on you. They're going to pick on you because you're a small business, because you don't have all the big tool sets like all the big businesses do to prevent hacking in there. So you want to be cognizant about that to make sure that you are being watched and you are a huge target. The other piece that I didn't mention yet as far as the fraud that may occur with credit card usage and why you should use a CVV2 as well is sometimes you'll get disputes from actual people who do own the card. So they may make purchases and they may dispute it later. And if you don't show that that card is present through that CVV2, that customer is going to win that chargeback dispute. And we're seeing this a lot. And, unfortunately, due to what's happening, a lot of people are out of work. So a lot of people are looking at ways to save money as well. And they're going to pick on the merchants. They're going to say, well, he's a business, she's a business. They make more money than I do, so they can afford one little loss. So again, make sure that you protect yourself using the CVV2 and the AVS. Now, it's also highly recommended for you as well, as I mentioned before, if you're going to be protecting that information that comes in, that you augment your system somehow to protect that data. When you get that cardholder information that comes in, those are available to be seen, especially if someone hacks into your system or someone sends a malicious link and you click on it. Now they can get into your system and they can, see all that information going back and forth, whether the information is in transit or if it's in rest. So some of the things that we recommend to protect that information is to have some sort of product that you can use. And some of these products already come with a lot of the merchants that you use for authorizations. One of them, and the first one, is what we call E2EE, or end-to-end encryption. Make sure whoever you're processing through does offer that. What that means is the data that's being sent by you from your business, so you get the card number, you get the address, you get CVV2, you get all that personal PII information. When you send it through the authorization system, if you have that encryption or that E2EE, it encrypts that data. So when it goes from your shop to the banks for authorization, and it comes back and it gives you that response, that's encrypted. So if someone did hack into your system, they won't be able to see that data. They won't be able to steal that data. So if they can't see it, they can't steal it. You're not going to have chargeback issues. You're not going to have regulatory issues with PCI, and you're not going to have a potential what they call a data breach. And in every state, depending where you're at, every data breach law is different, but certain pieces of information are considered a breach. In the past, we used to think that, okay, Social Security was one of the biggest things. If someone got your Social Security number, that was considered a breach. But now today, a lot of the states have changed what is considered PII, and they've added things like IP addresses, email addresses. Some of them, as far as if you do actually make transactions overseas, GDPR is in effect, which could even mean just an address itself is considered PII, or name, anything that can identify that consumer. So you want to make sure you, as I mentioned, you want to augment your protection utilizing something like E2EE, or end-to-end encryption. And again, it's a service that 90% of merchant processors now offer. So it's something that you want to make sure your merchant provider offers that to you. Now, another piece that can be helpful is what they call tokenization. Tokenization is a methodology. It addresses security when card data is in transit, it's in rest, or it's in use. Before we mentioned that the E2EE encrypts that data, right? And it sends it off. And then they get it and they look at it. And then it encrypts it, it comes back to you. And then it's decrypted and you see that information. So it protects you while that data is out there and it's in rest, but when you're viewing that data, there's that small window that it's possible they can see that information. With tokenization, that protects the account number. What it does is it takes that account number and it replaces it with a key, so it becomes tokenized. So you don't actually see the card number, and neither does the merchant processing side. There is a token in place that when that token goes out, they recognize that and they use that for authorization. So those are a couple of pieces of information that may be useful for you to utilize and protect yourself from chargebacks and information that's out there. Bear with me, my computer just slowed down. Okay. Now in vendor fraud, I know they discussed a little bit on vendor fraud. And they discussed a couple of cases that are up here. Ashley did. We have fake invoices. We have calling in for late payment. And there's the stealing of business financial information. Calling in for late payment. Ashley looked at it in the perspective of emails actually going to you. A lot of these fraudsters are actually making outbound calls as well to businesses. And of course, as a business, you know that if you're not having people there, all your actual transaction is going to be either through email or they're calling in, so you don't want to tie up the lines. We also know as businesses, there's a lot of shortages of places of what you need for your business. So it could be items such as, if you're a restaurant, maybe certain types of foods that you get to your restaurant. It may be things like sanitizers, masks, or whatever it is, the supplies you need. They're not available in stock like they normally were prior to the pandemic. So a lot of businesses do look for alternate places to make these orders. So because of that, you're not keeping track, or your employees aren't really keeping track of all the different locations that you're utilizing. So most of them will call in and say, hey, you made this purchase. it was for these products. That they'll know because they'll know what type of business you are, and it's late. And many of them will allow you to say, hey, I'll let you put a portion down and we won't, report it as late. Yet, you'll have another net 20 or 30 days to make the rest of the payment. And most people will send that payment in. And a lot of them are utilizing things like, once you agree to say that, yes, I'll make the payment, they're going to send an invoice through either a QuickBooks invoice, or they're going to use one of the BMOs, one of the other fintech softwares that are out there. And most of the businesses will pay this because they don't want to be late. They want to make sure they continue getting the product that they need for their business. And in the meanwhile, they're being defrauded from money there. The other item is actual fake invoices. Now, Ashley went through that as far as emails coming in with invoices so that you click on them. If you get caught by phishing in a different capacity, say just a different type of email, and they have access to your system, they now have access to all your business information as far as what vendors there are out there that you're utilizing. So then they can make out these fake invoices and they send it to you, and you'll know that, hey, this is a vendor that I actually go to. This is a vendor that I actually make purchases with. And you're more than likely to send those bills in without questioning them. Unfortunately, the information where they send it back to you when they send you that bill is coming to a different location, or it's being sent to a different location. Or they may send it electronically. So of course it's going to go to a different account that's out there. So more than ever today, you want to really be vigilant when you get any of your normal merchant bills from the businesses that you make these purchases from. You really want to question everything. You want to kind of have a tight rein on what's being purchased and where the purchases are. So maybe it's something that you want to have maybe one employee focus on instead of maybe multiple employees. So that way you have more control of what's coming in and what's going out. Stealing business financial information is another piece of it. If they are able to get into your system because they hacked in or you clicked on one of the links, they're able to download files from your system. That can include files like your customer database. So now they have your customers' name, address, email addresses. They have your company logos, invoices. So they can go out and then utilize that information and send out invoices to your customers. So if you're a business that maybe sells flowers or you sell some other type of products that are mailed out, they're going to be sending invoices to your consumer base. They may be saying that they're late. They may be saying that they made a purchase and it hasn't been paid. A majority of customers are going to know they didn't make that purchase that day. A lot of customers now, because of financial institution, may be late. So they're going to see that and they're going to go, okay, I'll make a payment. And your customers are paying an outside source instead of your business. So it's important, as Dr. Ashley mentioned, you want to protect your systems. You want to have training of your employees to understand, to know what's going on. You want to have protection, software protection on your system to be able to block anything that comes in. So you want to have the right softwares available. So let's move on to some of the frauds that you may be seeing in PPP loans from scammers. So today, the fraudsters are spoofing the SBA and are targeting PPP loans. So we mentioned before that you may have a fake website that looks real that's out there. That's what's going on. Fraudsters are creating these websites that look like the SBA websites. They look like they may be from the PPP bank, if that's where the loan is coming from. That looks just like their website from Wells Fargo, Bank of the West, wherever it may be, Great Western. And they're sending you emails regarding that to say, hey, your PPP loan, is coming through, or it's still on hold, or if you already got it, they may say that, hey, you're eligible now for new ones. A lot of us have heard that, hey, there may be another PPP loan coming out. So a mass mailing did go out from these fraudsters saying that you can get in early on this and start filling out the information. What they're doing there is they're collecting your business information. They're collecting your EIN numbers, all the information that you put on. They're collecting your password because they're making you sign on to the site for the SBA loans and for all the other different types of loans. And then they're using it for nefarious purposes. And you're thinking you're going to be approved for these PPP loans when in fact they're just stealing the information. Some of the things to look out for when you get these emails, or if you go onto the site and it's not the site, is all of them are going to be asking you for some sort of fee to expedite it. So that's number one red flag right there that you want to look at. They don't charge any fees. There aren't any fees that should be charged for these loans. In addition, they should not ask you for any sign-ons. So the SBA location, the loans that you go through on their website, there are no sign-ons. They would never ask you to give that sign-in information for you. The other thing is they're going to ask you for your business PII, and they probably may ask you for your employee PII. Because again, remember with the PPP loans, those are based on payroll protection. So they are going to ask you for payroll information. They're going to ask you for the last few months of the last year of, the employee, what you've paid out. And some of these are being brazen enough to say we need the employee's name and the employee's social security to verify it. And a lot of times this may sound legitimate to us, because if you see what's going on there on the other aspect, or the other side of the PPP fraud, where the government is being defrauded, we have fake businesses that are going out there and applying for these PPP loans. So the government is getting tighter as far as the type of information. So most of us may think, hey, that's reasonable. They're asking for this information to protect themselves. Okay. Now, I want to kind of go over a little bit what the differences are between the SBA and the PPP loans. They're basically both going to be for business loans. There are some differences. Like I mentioned, PPP is the Paycheck Protection Program, and basically they're going to give you somewhere about 2.5 times the amount of payroll average, and they're going to give that to you as a loan. And that can go up to, I believe it's like $10 million that it goes out there for. The SBA, Small Business Association loans there, those are, as far as the forgiveness loan type, those only go up to $10,000. And that's not for paycheck protection. That's more just for businesses itself, for running the businesses. And then they can also go up to about, I want to say it's about $2 million, not on the forgiveness side. So when you look at these requests that may come into you that may be potential, look to see how they're worded on those websites. Because again, if you see, it's most fraudsters know it as payroll protection, PPP. So that's how they use it, but they're utilizing the SBA website. So SBA is not a PPP loan per se. It's more of a business loan. The PPPs are from other banks that provide them. So a lot of times what they're doing is copying and pasting from the PPP websites onto these SBA. So those are things you want to be cognizant and looking at. Let's see if we can get you an example here. Here's an example of an email, what happens afterwards, that they sent out from the SBA saying that they need additional information. They need you to go back in and log in to complete the information. When you click on that link, it's going to take you to this website here that looks like SBA, Small Business Administration loans here. Now, some of the things you're going to look at is the sender is disaster customer service at sba.gov. Looks good, looks great, but they actually spoofed that, meaning that they made that link look like that address. But if you actually hover over it, or you're able to look at the headers of that email that came in, you're going to see that it actually came in and it is marked to this hyperlink right here, which is leanprodconsulting.com. So you want to be cognizant when you do receive this, as we all mentioned 100 times, and you're probably tired of it, but don't click on those links. If you get something, that you did apply for an SBA loan, go directly there yourself. Type in that URL that you used to, or go to that website from when you bookmarked it, or, pulling it up from the web itself. Don't click the link. Some of them, if you look at IP addresses, the majority have been coming from this IP address here, 162.214.104.246. And here's where they're asking you to sign in right here. They're asking you, when you sign in there, they're actually stealing your credential information. So you don't want to utilize or sign that in. SBA, again, does not have sign-ins, but your normal PPP from banks do have those sign-ins. So if you ever get an email that's asking you for additional information from these PPP loans or SBA loans, you want to contact them directly from the information you have when you first started that application. So not from links, not from addresses that may be listed in the emails, or phone numbers, or anything that's in that email, from the information that you have yourself. Okay. And one good word of advice I want to leave with you is, as we all mentioned before, you want to report any of these crimes that may have occurred. So whether it's you lost money from a merchant sale, whether it's from a PPP loan, whatever fraud that you're seeing, there are many locations. One is the ic3.gov. In there, you can report that, and that goes to the Federal Bureau of Investigation that looks at those. And also, Better Business Bureau has the bbb.org scam tracker. So I would make a suggestion that you report to both. That way, as Dr. Ashley mentioned, the more data, the more details we can grab from that, the more that the local police can actually catch these people there. And from here, I'm going to turn it back over to Jeff. Give me one moment, Jeff.
Thank you so much, Eric, for that presentation. And like Eric mentioned, yes, BB Scam Tracker is a great site to report these scams. Even if you don't lose money, we still want to hear about it to help warn others and prevent others from falling victim.